And we're staying in that township because as part of Mandela Day celebrations, the Department of Defense and Military Veterans, led by Minister Angie Motshekga, will spend 67 minutes today in Alexandra. The commemoration will pay tribute to President Nelson Mandela's enduring legacy of service, justice and unity, with a strong focus on youth empowerment, environmental action and civic responsibility. This year's theme is "It's Still in Our Hands to Combat Poverty and Inequality." Joining me now to share more on these plans is the Minister of Defense and Military Veterans, Angie Motshekga. Minister, very good morning to you. Happy Nelson Mandela Day. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. I see you're not standing alone. Who's the gentleman there standing to your right?
That's General Chitwangai. He's head of our HR section, the Defense Force, but also responsible for SANSI, which is our youth program, the Presidential Youth Initiative. So he's really the head of SANSI and head of HR.
Yeah, so speak to us about what brings the Defense Department to Alexandra and what it is that you'd like to spread on this day.
You know, as part of celebrating Mandela Day, but also as part of our responsibility of promoting patriotism, youth development, we're working with an organization called Guardian Angels, and their focus is on environment. So we've partnered with them to bring the Defense Force, as I say, in terms of our own focus on youth development, environmental care, and patriotism. And Guardian Angels are an environmental organization purely, and they've come to partner with us. And that's why we're focusing on the Tuskegee River, on the environment and planting, but also making sure that we conscientize and sensitize our children on the importance of patriotism and celebrate our great hero, Babu Mandela.
Yeah, and Minister, how does this then speak to this year's theme, "It's Still in Our Hands to Combat Poverty and Inequality," considering that you are in Alexandra, stone's throw away from Sandton, the richest square mile on the continent, it has been dubbed, and yet in Alexandra, you are right at the center of a sea of poverty.
Yeah, it is in our hands as communities, as a society, as government, even as business, to say it's in our hands to turn things around. It's not government's responsibility alone, but it's also not the responsibility of those who are struggling. But it's for us to pool whatever resources that we have to take our people out of poverty, but also more important, to look after that which we have, our environment, our rivers, our land, our neighborhood, so that as we struggle to get other things right, we have to maintain and sustain that which we already have, which is our rivers.
The national security strategy that was released this week, the reducted version of it, also speaks about the lack of economic growth and the threat that that poses to a potential unrest. Last week, you and I had this conversation as well, and indeed there it is in the national security document, the national security strategy document, but a reducted version of it, of course. But Minister, just once again, speak to us about what a non-growing economy means for stability in the country or lack of stability and the potential of a so-called unrest.
You know, poverty, unemployment is very dehumanizing. And if you really reach a stage where the majority of your people are trapped in poverty, don't have hope, then that's a recipe for bigger problems. And that's why the 7th administration has acknowledged that we will not be able to do much as a country unless we focus on growth, development, and security or safety. And that's the only way we can really be safe ourselves if people are not dehumanized to an extent that they couldn't be bothered and couldn't care what happens.
Yeah. Minister, from where you're standing currently, what's your observation now, once again, around a potential unrest in the country, and also considering what the national security strategy is speaking about? It almost feels as though that the country could be on a knife's edge, considering all of the protest action that are taking place currently, although a majority of them being deemed peaceful marches, whether it is blocking of foreign nationals or anti-foreign national sentiment, or even the ones in support of Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi.
I mean, the levels of violence in our country, even in our households, your GBV, children being killed, it's a very sharp indicator to asymptomatic problems that we are confronted as a country. Our levels of violence are unsustainable. So as much as we're in the biggest square, but we are also rated as the most violent country. There's gangsterism. So it's not even knife edge that is coming, but we are really sitting on a very dangerous situation unless we can address our problems.
Yeah, and how do you address those problems, Minister?
By working together. The theme is right. Working together and making sure that it remains in our hands to make our lives meaningful. And together with business, with the private sector, with everybody else, that we have to pool our resources together and not blame anybody, but say, what is it that we can do together to improve or to make better situations? So it's really, for me, in line with the theme that together it's in our hands.
Yeah,
I believe that it's in our hands.
Yeah, I just want to go back again, Minister, to the national security strategy. Minister Kumbuzo Chaveni mentioned a risk of a potential coup d'etat, and the definition of a coup d'etat, of course, is military power overtaking or overthrowing a sitting government. From your assessment, and I'm not too sure how far Minister can go in terms of what your assessment has been and what your contribution as the Department of Defense has been to the national security strategy on the risk of a coup d'etat.
I just think it's very far. But from what I understood her to say was that despite the fact she used the word coup, it's unrestness that is there in the country. It's the challenges that we are facing as a country that are a big threat, more than actually having a coup. I'm confident, and nothing in me from the work that we do indicates that we could be faced with a threat of a coup.
So nothing within the military currently says to you there's a potential coup?
Not generals, and everybody were laughing to say, from our space, there is nothing that indicates. We really have a very responsible defense force, very committed to the country, and
Minister, can you still hear us? We seem to have lost the minister there. Let's quickly see if we can re-establish that line to the Minister of Defense and Military Veterans, Angie Motshekga, who is currently in Alexandra as part of Nelson Mandela Day. And this year's theme is, it's still in our hands to combat poverty and inequality. And of course, as we know, with the national security strategy that was released, the reducted version of it, of course, that was released earlier on this week, the lack of economic growth is at the center or central to a potential unrest in the country and poses a threat to the nation as well. And how do we ensure that we are able to give confidence to South Africans that their lives are secured and that the country does have the necessary power to ensure that our borders are protected and the sovereignty of the country as well. Then on the other end as well, you have that coup d'etat that the minister in the presidency, Kumbuzo Chaveni, was referencing, that foiling potential coup d'etats and the potential risk of a coup d'etat. But the assurance from the minister is that as far as they are concerned, within South Africa's military, there is no potential for a coup d'etat. But rather what could happen is a potential unrest, which could be triggered by other issues. And we've seen the number of protests that have been taking place in the country as well. And the national security strategy also raising the point around potential conflicts that could come from the lack of resources that the country currently has, looking at what's currently playing out between foreign nationals, undocumented foreign nationals at that, and the pressure that it is applying on the public healthcare sector. So the government has come out to say, of course, that that is unconstitutional, but the national security strategy points that out as a potential risk to the country. Okay, the minister is back. Minister, just quickly around the point that you were making when this whole coup d'etat word was dropped and the conversations that you were having with some of the generals?
No, it's a very unfortunate term to have used, as you correctly say, coup d'etat to be when your army overthrows your state. And I'm saying even constitutionally it's unlikely because they have to go through parliament first before they even go for the president. But being in this space, working with these generals, I can confidently say there's not even simmering or even any threat of a coup. My understanding of what Minister Kumbuzo was saying was the threat of local or internal disruptions or internal protests that you have, which can escalate and become your 2022 unless we can manage our current crisis of youth unemployment, of high levels of violence, but also the underdevelopment that persists in our country.
Yeah. What's your assurance to South Africans today?
I'm saying we are very privileged as a nation to have had a person like Mandela in our lives, who put their lives on the line, 27 years down the line, fought for us to be here. And my message to South Africans to say, please, let's do the best that we can to make sure that we can take forward that which they had wished for us and had worked for us as a current generation and generations to come. So what I really can assure them in terms of safety, we're working hard to make sure that, especially in terms of safety of the state, it is secured, working hard to make sure, working with the police to support them against ongoing violence and ill discipline and lawlessness that is bothering our country. But in terms of the safety of the state, I can assure them that there's not even a shred of risk that will have the defense overthrowing their government.
Yeah. And finally, Minister, this week we saw a group of convicts landing in Eswatini, and a lot of conversations have been raised around this and what it could potentially mean for the region and the SADC region at that as well. This morning, the CNN International News Network is reporting that a South African government source told CNN that there's a feeling that some inside the Trump administration could be using the deportation of prisoners to Eswatini to destabilize South Africa, given its porous borders and Eswatini's struggling economy. Is this a risk at all that has been identified by the Defense Department and its intelligence apparatus? And is there a conversation that is going to be had with the Eswatini government around this decision?
You know, our intelligence officers always exchange notes. I have a meeting with the head of intelligence this afternoon. They exchange notes, we monitor the situation. I don't think, it will depend what she tells me, that we have reached a stage where our neighbors, be Swaziland, Mozambique, Lesotho, Botswana, or even Zimbabwe, are threat to us. But efforts to destabilize us are not new. They were, during the Mozambican thing, we were very worried that the problems in Mozambique would spill over. And anything that happens in our neighbor, because they are right in, especially countries like Lesotho, Swaziland, are right inside South Africa. And anybody who is unhappy with us, especially US with the current postures, are going to want to use our neighbors to destabilize us. But for now, as SADC, we're a very stable region, and we exchange notes. Next week, we'll be going to Tanzania. And again, in Tanzania, both as defense and international relations, will be able to assess what is the geopolitical situation within SADC. So there is an ongoing process of monitoring anything that happens between us, especially as SADC, and now in partnership with East Africa. So that is getting strengthened. So we will be able to detect if there's any threat, and we'll detect it quickly because our intelligence officers do exchange notes on an ongoing basis.
Yeah. And finally, Minister, how do you have that conversation while also ensuring on the one end that our neighboring countries' sovereignty is respected around international decisions that they want to take, even if some may look at it and say that it may pose a danger and a risk to the other neighbors?
No, we respect each other as countries, and that's why we discuss, we don't impose. When we go, I guess, to the SADC meeting, we'll have an open a discussion as the region who is committed to peace but is committed to supporting each other. So I don't think anybody's sovereignty will be threatened, because the spirit in which we always discuss has always been neighborly, but also historically as a region, a very stable region. So it will not threaten anybody's sovereignty, but we'll be able to talk things through.
Yeah, and you haven't received any...
Our safety, and our safety is their safety. If anything happens in Mozambique, it impacts on us. If anything happens in Swaziland, it will not only even impact on South Africa, even Mozambique can be affected. And that's the spirit through which we discuss our matters as a region.
Yeah. Is Minister able to comment on the source that is being quoted by CNN, that there's a feeling that some inside the Trump administration could be using our neighbors to destabilize the country? Is there such a conversation?
I really don't want, because I mean, up to now, I don't have that information. And it's only when I get the briefing that we will be able to verify the information, verify the source. As I said, this very afternoon, I have a meeting with our intelligence officers. They will tell us if, and they'll verify, because every other incident or reported matter, they quickly analyze and report back to ourselves and Minister Ntshavheni and the presidency. So for now, because really I saw it on TV myself, I would not be able to honestly comment and confirm. I'll only be able to confirm when the report has been provided.